The Battle of Talas, Battle of Talas River, or Battle of Artlakh, was a military engagement between the Arab Abbasid Caliphate along with their ally the Tibetan Empire against the Chinese Tang Dynasty, governed at the time by Emperor Xuanzong. In July 751 AD, Tang and Abbasid forces met in the valley of the Talas River to vie for control of the Siadaya region of Central Asia. After a stalemate and several days of combat, the Tang lost the battle because the Karluks defected from the Tang side to the Abbasid side. The battle was a defeat for the Tang and marked the end of their westward territorial expansion, resulting in Muslim control of Transoxiana for the next 400 years. Control of this region was economically beneficial for the Abbasids because it was on the Silk Road. Supposedly, Chinese prisoners captured in the aftermath of the battle brought paper-making technology to the Middle East, from which it eventually spread to Europe. Location. The exact location of the battle has not been confirmed but is believed to be near Taraz and Talas on the border of present-day Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan. The Chinese name Daosi was first seen in the account of Xuanzang. Duan located the city near the western drain of the Chui River. Background. Prior to the battle, there were other indirect encounters between some of the combatants, and the military might of China had been projected beyond the harsh continental climate and the dry, desolate, and difficult terrain of the Tarim Basin, much of which consists of the Takalimukan Desert, as early as the Han Dynasty, when Emperor Wu of Han sent military expeditions to seize horses which got as far as the Fergana. Then, in 715, Al-Utard, the new king of Fergana Valley, was installed with the help of the Arabs of the Umayyad Caliphate. The deposed Ikhshid fled to Qucha, and sought Chinese intervention. The Chinese sent 10,000 troops under Zhang Shaosong to Fergana. He defeated the Arab puppet ruler Al-Uttar at Namangan and reinstalled Ikhshid. The inhabitants of 3 Sogdian cities were massacred as a result of the battle. The second encounter occurred in 717, when Arabs were guided by the Turgish and besieged 2 cities in the area of Aksu. The commander of the Chinese Protectorate General to pacify the West, Tang Jiahui, responded using 2 armies. One composed of Karluk mercenaries led by Ashinashin and another composed of Tang regulars led by Jiahui himself. In the year 750, Abu al-Abbas al-Safar, the founder of the Abbasid Caliphate, launched a massive rebellion against the incumbent Umayyad Caliphate from the province of Khorasan. After his decisive victory at the Battle of the Zaban, eliminating those of the Umayyad family who failed to escape to Al-Andalus, as-Safar sent his forces to consolidate his caliphate, including Central Asia, where his forces confronted many regional powers, including those of China's Tang Dynasty. Battle. The numeric quantities of the combatants involved in the Battle of Talas are not known with certainty, however, various estimates exist. The Abbasid army, which included contingents from their Tibetan ally, met the combined army of 10,000 Tang Chinese and 20,000 Karluk mercenaries. In the month of July 751, the Abbasid forces joined in combat with the Tang Chinese force on the banks of the Talas River. The Tang army was subjected to a devastating defeat. The Tang dynasty's defeat was due to the defection of Karluk mercenaries and the retreat of Fergana allies who originally supported the Chinese. The Karluk's forces composed 2/3 of the Tang army changed to the Abbasid side while the battle was ongoing, so that Karluk troops attacked the Tang army from close quarters and the main Abbasid forces attacked from the front so that the Tang troops were unable to hold their positions. The commander of the Tang forces, Gao Xiangji, recognized that defeat was imminent and managed to escape with some of his Tang regulars with the help of Li Xia. Out of an estimated 10,000 Tang troops, only 2,000 managed to return from Talas to their territory in Central Asia. Despite losing the battle, Li did inflict heavy losses on the pursuing Arab army after being reproached by Duan Zhuxi After the battle, Gao was prepared to organize another Tang army against the Arabs when the devastating Anshi rebellion broke out in 755. When the Tang capital was taken by rebels, all Chinese armies stationed in Central Asia were ordered back to China proper to crush the rebellion. Aftermath and historical significance. Shortly after the Battle of Talas, the domestic rebellion of Lushan and subsequent warlordism gave the Arabs the opportunity to further expand into Central Asia as Tang influence in the region retreated. The local Tang tributaries then switched to the authority of the Abbasids, Tibetans, or Uiyghurs, and the introduction of Islam was thus facilitated among the Turkic peoples. It was the Lushan rebellion and not the defeat at Talas that ended the Tang Chinese presence in Central Asia and forced him to withdraw from Xinjiang. Talas was of no strategic importance, because the Arabs did not advance any further after the battle. A small minority of Karluks converted to Islam after the battle. The majority of Karluks did not convert to Islam until the mid-10th century under Sultan Satik Bufra Khan, when they established the Kara Khanate. This was long after the Tang dynasty was gone from Central Asia. Abu al-Abbas al-Safar, whose forces were known to the Chinese as the Black-Robed Tashi, spent his wealth on warfare. He died in the year 752 AD. His brother, who succeeded him as the second Abbasid Caliph, Abu Ja'far al-Mansur, helped the Chinese Emperor Xuanzong of Tang after he appealed for help during the Anshi rebellion in regaining control of his capital Chang'an from the treacherous commander and Lushan, or his successors in the abortive Yan dynasty. Abu Ja'far al-Mansur responded by sending 4,000 men who helped the Tang troops in recapturing the city and were well rewarded by the Chinese emperor. After the rebellion was repressed, they were allowed to settle down permanently in China, which helped in founding of the earliest Muslim communities in China. Some of them married local Chinese people, and their descendants became native-born Muslims who retained their religious tradition and unique way of life. In 760, a large-scale massacre of wealthy Arab and Persian merchants occurred in China during the Yangzhou massacre, at the hands of Chinese rebels led by Tian Shenggong. In 879, during the Guangzhou massacre, 120,000 to 200,000 Arab, Muslim, Persian, Zoroastrian, Jewish, and Christian foreign merchants in Guangzhou were massacred by Chinese rebels under Huang Chao. The culture of Central Asia, once a mixture of Persian, Indian, and Chinese influences, disappeared under the power struggles between the empires of the Arabs, Chinese, Turks, Tibetans, and Uyghurs. Islam grew as the dominant cultural force of Central Asia. With the decline of Central Asian Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism was now cut off from Indian Buddhism and developed into an independent religion with distinct spiritual elements. Indigenous Buddhist traditions like Pure Land Buddhism and Zen emerged in China. China became the center of East Asian Buddhism, following the Chinese Buddhist canon, as Buddhism spread to Japan and Korea from China. Among the earliest historians to proclaim the importance of this battle was the great Russian historian of Muslim Central Asia, Vasily Bartold, of 20th century, according to whom the earlier Arab historians, occupied with the narrative of events then taking place in Western Asia, do not mention this battle, but it is undoubtedly of great importance in the history of Turkestan, as it determined the question which of the two civilizations, the Chinese or the Muslim, should predominate in the land. The loss of 8,000 troops to the Tang Empire can be compared to a troop strength of more than 500,000 before the Anshi Rebellion. According to Bartold, for the history of the first 3 centuries of Islam, Al-Tabari was the chief source, which was brought down to 915. It is only in Attir that we find an accurate account of the conflict between the Arabs and the Chinese in 751. Neither Tabari nor the early historical works of the Arabs which have come down to us in general make any mention of this. However, Attir's statement is completely confirmed by the Chinese history of the Tang dynasty. In all Arab sources, the events which occurred in the eastern part of the empire are often dealt with briefly. Another notable informant of the battle on the Muslim side was al-Dahabi. The Battle of Talas did not mark the end of Buddhism or Chinese influence in the region. The Buddhist Kara-Khitan Khanate defeated the Muslim Seljuk Turks and the Muslim Kara-Khanate Turks at the Battle of Katwan in 1141. Conquering a large part of Central Asia from the Muslim Kara-Khanate Khanate in the 12th century. The Kara-Khitans also reintroduced the Chinese system of imperial government. Since China was still held in respect and esteem in the region among even the Muslim population, and the Kara-Khitans used Chinese as their main official language, the Kara-Khitan rulers were called the Chinese by the Muslims. Professor Denis Sinor said that it was interference in the internal affairs of the Western Turkic Khaganate which ended Chinese supremacy in Central Asia, since the destruction of the Western Khaganate rid the Muslims of their greatest opponent, and it was not the Battle of Talas which ended the Chinese presence. Later during the reign of Abbasid Caliph Harun al-Rashid, the Arabs terminated their alliance with the Tibetan Empire, and established an alliance with China after sending envoys to China in 789. Papermaking. The Battle of Talas was a key event in the history of paper, the technological transmission of the papermaking process. After the Battle of Talas, knowledgeable Chinese prisoners of war were ordered to produce paper in Samarkand, or so the story goes. In fact, high-quality paper had been known, and made, in Central Asia for centuries. A letter on paper survives from the 4th century to a merchant in Samarkand. But the Islamic conquest of Central Asia in the late 7th and early 8th centuries opened up this knowledge for the first time to what became the Muslim world, and so by the year 794 AD, paper manufacturing could be found in Baghdad, modern-day Iraq. The technology of papermaking was thus transmitted to and revolutionized the Islamic world, and later the European West. The paper production was a state secret, and only some places and Buddhist monks knew the technology. Of course, the paper was transported many kilometers as a Chinese luxury product, and as it was traded. The finding of paper in several places is not proof of production, but of use.